You said a second picture. Yeah, I never saw.
That's a scene from the winter. I don't know if it's from the same angle as this one.
No, it's not.
Oh, that's good. That's helpful.
Wait a minute. Oh, I didn't know you had 3.
Yeah, and then there's this one here. I have 4.
Okay. This is terrible. This is, to my eyes, this is terrible. Because I would have hoped that this would have been in color.
I think this was taken in the 1910s.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, because the quarry was here in the 1870s. They started using the quarry for the stone, for these bridges, and for where the bear dens are at the zoo. So this is Onondaga limestone and quarry, and so they used that, and they had a machine, a steam-powered machine, down at the base, maybe somewhere down here, to cut the stone. And then when they didn't need the stone anymore, they made it into a garden. And then it was a beautiful garden for a while, and then whatever happened, whether it became passé, but from even early on, there were cars that would crash into the quarry. I don't know how they got over the edge, but there's a newspaper record of somebody, I don't remember if it was in the 1920s or whatever, but then they started to worry about people crashing into the quarry. Now, we're kind of a long ways from the street, aren't we, for a car to be driving into the quarry?
I need to get off camera.
Okay. That's okay with me.
What was going on that became, well, the ground was very firm. It was sitting on rock.
Yeah.
And so what could happen, and what did happen quite a bit, it became a lover's lane. So if you, back in those days, you could go to the park all night long. And what better situation for you if you didn't want to be disturbed and you in your car, you just drive over inside. It wasn't much, like I said, that must have been within 50 to 60 feet from the circle to the entrance to this pit. I'm back.
Yeah, well, in our day, we had a different phrase for doing those things. It's called watching the submarine races. You remember? Don't you remember doing that? Yeah, we used to go watch the submarine. We used to go and watch the submarine races along the Niagara River.
Submarine?
Yeah.
And the river?
No. It's a... Lovers would be in their car and say, well, what did you do last night? Your car is facing the river and it's a beautiful sunset. Well, you would just tell your parents, oh, we were watching the submarine races.
Oh, I get it. Because that river in places is ankle deep.
Right. Well, sometimes we did in Ellicott Creek Park, and that's, that's ankle deep as well. But, that was what we called it. But anyways, back to this.
Okay.
So, of course, the backstory, like you tell, is like, oh, what they were really doing versus what they reported in the news. We understand. And then, so maybe that's why they wanted to fill it in. By 1959, the Common Council of Buffalo was making plans to fill this in. Because the Kensington Expressway and the Skagakwa were under construction.
Right.
When did you leave Buffalo?
What do you mean leave?
You said you had been,
Oh, the Army. Uncle Sam took me.
You were abducted. Oops, careful. So, in the 50s, they were building the Skagit. They started planning, it was a horrible thing, but anyways, they started planning because they said, well, if we get hit by a nuclear bomb, how are we going to get out of the city in a hurry?
Right.
So that's why I said, well, we've got to make some better roads to get out of the city in a hurry. So that's when they were planning the Scajaquada and planning the Humboldt, all these highways and the interstate system. So what they were doing, they called this the short way.
The what
Delaware
way?
Park short way.
Oh,
Let me show you
the
this
short
map.
exit. Is that what you're saying?
Now they wanted to connect Humboldt Parkway. Ooh, breezy. They wanted, okay, so here's Humboldt Parkway over here. And they wanted to connect. I said, whoops, I got this upside down. Okay.
That made sense either way.
Okay, here's the circle. Okay, and
Wait a minute, circle.
there's the Agassiz Circle. Okay, there's Humboldt Parkway. And here is the Parkside Lodge.
Okay.
So the Humboldt Parkway and the Kensington Route 33 were going to end there. And then they thought, oh, well, we need to make a route to get over to the river because they were putting in the 190. And what they were going to do was they were going to use Hinman Avenue.
What? What?
Yeah, well
Go ahead, don't
yeah,
let me stop.
it's just astounding what they were going to do. I know Hinman Avenue very well. My father's business was, well, you know where Volker's Bowling is? On Elmwood and Amherst? You know where that Elmwood and Amherst is?
Hey,
Well-
she knows all those places by heart.
Well,
I don't know.
that's just over there.
Okay.
And so my father's business was there. And so naturally I know every building, every foot of Elmwood because I grew up at Elmwood and Sheridan by the Sheridan Plaza.
Okay.
And it's like, Hinman? You're going to put a throughway on Hinman? It's a two-lane street. But they were
It's
looking...
so far north.
Yeah,
It's so far north of here.
it is. But it was going to connect the 33
to the
across to the 190.
Right.
So that didn't work, so they moved it a little closer. Then they decided to take this parkland that we have here. So, well, we won't have to buy it because we already own, the city of Buffalo already owns this parkland. So that's how they put that in. And we think that the construction rubble filled the quarry.
I've been saying that. How many years now have I been saying that? Finally started listening to me.
That's right. We think along the same lines. We haven't done any testings, put a stick down and see how far it goes. But because it was, I don't know how many cubic feet.
Tons and tons.
Yeah,
And tons.
and tons. They did hire some companies to haul some of the stuff away. But,
Radioactive.
no.
Listen, I'm serious. I'm serious. I don't put that beyond. When you start talking about places to hide dirty filth,
Mhm.
I've seen it. And I'm on the sideline. And I've seen it. And so excuse me if I'm tarnished.
No. We need these. 50 years later, all this stuff comes out. People start talking. But for one thing, you're comfortable talking about it because, some of these horrible things that happen, you just can't talk about.
Right.
And now the Manhattan Project. You know the Manhattan Project?
No, you know I don't.
No, you don't. Not at all.
I
Well,
don't recognize it by that name.
no, not at all. Well, that Manhattan Project was worked on a block and a half from where I grew up.
Okay.
And there was this huge explosion in about 1953. And so, I don't know, several people were killed, and they could not explain how the oxygen or the hydrogen they were making caused this explosion.
Right. It doesn't figure.
Now, sell whatever they had. Yeah, of course there's now information on all the hot sites in Western New York.
Right.
So anyway, so back to what you remember. Is there anything else you want to talk about on camera?
Now, my focus was trees, and I know Buffalo sets on rock, and I know this: when you are in construction or rehab, you always need a place to get rid of your junk. One man's junk is another man's treasure. Now, I can imagine you could find a treasure trove if you want to spend the money and the time. They might have been bringing stuff from Lackawanna or from Niagara Falls dumping here. Who knows where all of this material came from. I think one of my questions was, what year was this filled in? Do you have any records of that?
Between 56 and 59.
So I was in Korea in 53. So they was filling this in, and I didn't know it. Right now, I can't tell you. This would be my best recollection, this picture here. Of course, it was just a hole, literally a hole, and everything was going wild. There was no indication of it ever being a garden path.
Which way? This. I can put it back in the tube.
I will speak on this 33 project.
Uh-huh.
They claim they underbidded on how much money it would cost to put in the 33,
Oh, yeah.
and they ran out of material, they ran out of money right where, somewhere between Grider and Fillmore, they ran out. And then, I don't know how long it would have been, sometime in around 56, 54 to 56, they got some money from somewhere and they got up to the cemetery here. And there was the biggest, almost a war over don't disturb my grandfather's sepulcher. But they went on through anyway, and I talked to people now about that, and some of the people I talked to about, they can't believe that the 33 goes through what was and is a graveyard. I said, well, if you look on either side,
Yeah.
I don't need to say anymore. But I didn't know why, when you started telling me that they were planning an exit or an escape route from anything nuclear, wow, that hurls me from the past into the future, because when I was 13, 14 years old, and even when I was 21, after I came out of the Army, I never even heard the word nuclear, and I was a division honor guard, 24th Division, 19th Regiment, US 512-24051. Yeah, you know they brainwashed me.
Yeah? I feel like I was brainwashed because I grew up here. I mean, it's only 6 miles to my house from here. And I didn't know it took 10 years for them to finish the Kensington. 10 years. Just the 33.
Right.
Because, right, like you said, by the time they got out to Grider and Fillmore, they ran out of money because
They said
Well,
they
the
ran out
stone
of
they
money.
had to cut through. I mean, the wheeling and dealing that went on with that.
I didn't see cutting. They were just down at it. And front end loaders, and they were just brute strength. I don't remember seeing them cut stone. I looked at the stone because I'm familiar with the stone that's over at the Buffalo Art Museum. I don't know. I don't know if that stone is. I don't know what it is, but it's not limestone. And there was a quarry at Maine and East Ferry.
Right.
And there was another quarry up at Maine and Utica. And there was only a select few buildings that were able to use or quarry that stone. And most of them were government buildings that was in on some of that building, that particular type of rock that's around over by the Japanese garden. Over,
Yeah.
that's not the art museum, what is that?
Historical Society.
Historical, yes, I stand. Yeah. So now, where do you go from here with this information?
Well, there's a gentleman.
Archive it?
Well, actually, there was a gentleman who is writing the history. Here's his article. You can keep that copy if you like. His research is because he had a friend who worked as an arborist for Forest Lawn Cemetery, and he discovered this quarry, and he goes, well, I'd like to know more about it. So about 2 years ago, he called us, and he said, well, do you have any information? I said, oh yeah, we have lots, and I'll find more and more and more. And I emailed him the other day to say, you know, Mr. Dubose is coming to what questions would you like us to ask? And it could be funded. I mean,
I need some funding real bad.
Oh, let's do some fundraising.
To carry on my...
Oh, yeah, your legacy, of course. And so there was a big meeting, a presentation. This man, his name is Sam, came to the Historical Society and presented his project. How about if you just do something visual with those glasses, the 3D glasses, so you can imagine you can come to the spot and look virtually look at how it was. And so why we do this is because we're capturing part of the history of the park. And so by capturing the history of the park from you, we can restore the park to the way it was, or at least find the information.
Okay, so now I can contribute something else. Now that you said park, the Delaware Lake, and I don't know what year this was, they fill in a substantial amount of Delaware Lake on the eastern end.
Eastern, yes, they did.
Should I go or should I?
Go ahead. I mean, because there was more rubble that they took from the 33 to fill it. Because one of the problems with Delaware Park Lake is that it's so shallow. It's only 6 feet deep.
It's not that deep.
It's not that deep.
No, it's not that deep.
It's not that deep.
And you want to talk about slime?
Slime.
Because
yes,
it comes
it's
out
horrible.
of the graveyard. It comes out of the graveyard.
Yes, and because the Skagway Creek runs from Lancaster, way over in Lancaster.
Further than that.
Further than that.
Yes, it goes all the way back to, where's the place where we kept the horses, baby? Out of Rick's.
Oh, that was West Falls.
Right. That Skagway goes, actually you've got two creeks underneath Buffalo, Delaware and Maine. There's a merge there. I did several studies on the springs, how Buffalo East Side is called Cold Springs, and a bunch of springs. And some of these people, one of my friends actually owns a piece of property that was one of the main springs by the Broadway Market. and I told them don't sell it. But somebody waved some money in his face, and they bought it not because of any historical value. And so what I'm saying to you is that at Delaware, Maine, there's a fountain or a spring there that directly feeds Delaware Lake, going right through the graveyard, picking up all the slime and residue from generations past. Skagita comes in from up by Sisters Hospital and comes down Main Street. Now, it amazes me what people of means will do to keep a creek or stream in its bed. They'll move heaven and hell. They're not going to disturb it. I don't understand the wisdom, but I'm not going to say anything against it because I don't understand it. But it seemed like they could have fudged a little bit.
Yeah, they could have. They could have.
And went around the graveyard, and you'd have some better water.
But
Because
they
you
didn't.
got naturally, you got the Skagita and the Delaware Main Delaware Spring conversion. So why couldn't you just skirt the graveyard and?
Well, because it usually comes down to money.
Well.
So, well, how about that idea?
Well, I tell you what, usually somebody big is sitting on the money.
Yes. That's what. Yes. Well, anyways, we won't go
Okay.
off the topic.
Okay.
But what I do for Olmsted is I get the information, whether it's online or oral interviews such as this, to help restore the parks, or at least find the information of what used to be here. Because since 2004, the Olmsted Parks Conservancy has partnered with the city of Buffalo so that Olmsted Parks Conservancy maintains the grounds. That's why they look fabulous, not the city park workers. So we share this. And what is it? The 2/3 of our funding comes from donations? Or do I have
40%.
40% comes from donations.
And sponsorships.
And sponsorships. So
You know money. Now we need to get to know each other because you know money.
Still learning.
yeah, oh yes. And so I'm part-time. I work about 3 hours a week.
Oh, that's terrible.
It is.
I know you would like more.
Well, I do more, but I donate those times. And when my granddaughter came to Buffalo to visit, and we were driving along Delaware Park Lake, Granny, you're a librarian. What do? Do you take books off a shelf and help kids in the libraries? No, I help find the information to restore the parks. Oh, Grammy, you must be famous. They're beautiful. And my answer is no, I'm not famous. The parks are famous. So, I have passion like the people who work here. We have seasonal workers. We have hundreds of seasonal workers.
Wow.
And Riverside Park, you'll see the people right down on the ground just pulling out all the little weeds. And that's why it looks beautiful, because we have people who are passionate.
Okay, now my real interest was the other side of Delaware Park, over by the casino. Did anybody tell you that?
What part?
The casino.
Yes, I know. What about the casino? Have you been to lunch at the Terrace Restaurant in the casino? Oh, it's wonderful.
You can't get in there. It's full every time I go.
Oh, well, you can make reservations. But interestingly, the partnership that the Terrace Restaurant has with Olmsted is that 6% of the income that goes, 6% comes, how do I say this, Z? 6% of the profits of the restaurant are given to Olmsted.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Those trees are what I want to know. Who planted them? Where are they from? They're not buffalo trees.
Well, we'd have to ask Brian about that. Brian Dole is, oh, and also,
Can you send him
Abby.
that picture?
Yes. It would,
There's several pictures on that.
yeah. Well, I'll give you Brian's email address. Okay? Because I will tell you, if I can write on this, or
Yes,
here.
you can write on it.
You're right on the back of this?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Now you want to contact Brian Dole. He's our horticulturist, and he knows. Oh, you know who else knows? Abby. You know Abby?
He's not with the Conservancy anymore.
He's not?
Yeah.
Oh, because he was in charge of the Japanese gardens.
Right now is Stan.
Okay. Stan Jennings. Very windy, Stan Jennings. Windy as in verbose.
Oh.
Yeah. Anyway, so he is our horticulturist, and he will give you. Now, okay. So you know the history of the land over by the Historical Society. That for a while, it was, or the north, part of it was for the Pan Am exhibition.
The Pan Am expedition
Sorry.
was on this side of the lake.
It was,
It was on the north side of the lake.
yes, it was, yes.
So what are we doing making a casino on the south side?
Oh, okay. The casino on the south side. Well, there was one built there in 1873. There's always been a restaurant on that site since 1873.
And was it originally a restaurant? Is that what it was built
Yes,
for?
it was built for a restaurant and also for the rowboats, the boats. And interesting. Okay. Yes, there was always a restaurant there, and because the parks commissioners gave very detailed reports when they were in charge up until 1915. Just a group of men were in charge of the Buffalo Park system, and then the city alderman, it changed from a city alderman to councilmatic style of government, so that's why that changed. So there was always a boathouse restaurant there, always, because people were always boating on the river, and tens of thousands of people would come on the weekends. And interestingly,
This must have been back in the 40s.
no, this was 1910.
Oh.
But even into the 40s, lots of people went to the park. Like in the wintertime, there was this guy who was a famous ice skater, I think. Whatever. Tens of thousands of people will come to watch the ice skating races in the winter. I mean, I can't imagine tens of thousands of people coming to the park in one day, but they did.
Wow.
That,
Population was greater too.
that,
Right.
that, what do you call it, the Centennial that was,
The Pan Am.
The Pan Am Centennial.
you know about it too?
Only seen pictures.
Oh, now you get a chance to talk
She
to
wasn't
me.
there.
Oh, man, did you tell her what you called that tree the slide down?
Yeah, I told him I call it the elevator tree, but that's different from the tree that originally brought me to you or you to me.
Right.
This is a copy of pictures for you to keep.
Oh, awesome.
But wait a minute, just a minute.
Thank you.
Talk to me about the mailbox. My memory might improve.
The mailbox? I don't understand. The
Oh.
mailbox?
Yeah, you know, this is mail.
Oh,
This is mail.
okay.
This is mail. And I'm helping I'm helping Buffalo put together some of the pieces. And I don't know how this works. It almost seems like something I've been in before I didn't like. But we'll see.
What do you mean? Something you didn't like?
I used to tell my wife about how when I used to go to Holden College, that they'd always, the professor would call on me to teach. And she said, I said, okay, you poo-poo me. I said, one day, unannounced, we'll show up out at Holden, and we'll see what happens. Sure enough, they called on me to teach. And not just to make a few comments. And so I said to them, I need a job. I told my wife, I said, they're gonna stop calling on me when I tell them I need a job. They told me, you're not qualified.
It's now called experiential learning. You could have your PhD or your master's. You don't need the sheepskin. Because, as my friends have told me, Buffalo's history is under-recorded, underwritten. I have stories, you have stories, and some of us are great storytellers, and we need to get the story out, which is why we do oral history interviews. And just try to connect. And I've been a fan of Buffalo history since I was born. And my family says, oh, Mom, another long story? I have lots and lots of long stories. And my father told long stories. My father was born in Buffalo in 1914. And he and his father, there were 6 boys in the family and 2 girls. The 2 girls died of disease. The boys, and then you move, I mean, they're living at Military and Austin Street. If you know where Military is, Military and Hurdle. They're living in that neighborhood. And they are very, very poor. And then the swine flu epidemic comes by in 1918, and poof, father's gone. So now you have a widow with 6 big boys. So there's that story. And then there's the story of every other neighborhood here. And then when my father was growing up, he and his brothers formed a business. And their business relied on their contacts from their Baptist churches. And so they delivered coal to all the churches and so they got friends with everybody was friendly. We used to go to Friendship Baptist Church to play concerts. We used to go to New Hope. My father was friends with Elijah Eccles at Shiloh. We used to go to Shiloh to do, and there was just so much that we did all around. How do you record some of these stories? Now, one book to read, Mark Goldman has done some of this writing, because he did some wonderful oral interviews with, not Arthur Eve, the other guy. I always forget his name.
How are you keeping silent?
I'm listening.
I know, but how is it that you're listening?
I'm listening.
If you said Elijah Eccles, I'm surprised
I
you
don't
didn't.
have that.
You don't have that?
Did you know Elijah Eccles?
Very well. Yeah.
Too well.
Do you know what my question is? On this particular picture, is this looking down into the quarry here?
Yes.
Hey,
Like something standing at the top. What is this here?
It's a path. It's a stone path.
It's a stone path. And the other thing is, I just one other question. When you were playing with your friends in the quarry, what was the condition of the quarry? Like, was it all grown up with weeds? Did you guys make a path?
I'll talk to you about that.
Well, I was just wondering what the condition was at that time.
Oh, it was pretty crummy. Yeah.
It was pretty crummy?
Yeah, it was pretty crummy.
Wow.
But it would be nice to restore. So, anyways, there are all. Mark Goldman wrote a book, The Rise and Fall of Buffalo. Mark Goldman has done several history books where who's the other guy? He's with the Jesse Nash Historical City. like a, oh,
Not on the tip of my tongue.
yeah,
I call it.
nice guy. It's not Oscar.
He's
it's-
dead now.
Oh,
If he's who I think you're talking about.
but anyways,
Malcolm Arnott?
no,
Did you know him?
no. But we have all these stories of growing up.
Right.
My father was a truck driver. He'd tell me stories all the time.
So you got the names of the people that can help me with the tree over
Yes,
there?
Yeah.
yes, and I would tell Brian to expect an email or a call,
Okay.
and I'll tell him to answer because he doesn't answer my emails. But I'll tell
Well, you
him.
know what? I can tell you
Do
something.
you
That's
have a
been my
number? A
experience.
phone number?